All right, Craig. We finally have arrived. Hopefully we can hold on.
Don't jinx it, but we got Diaz coming in. So put your glasses on.
I got them ready. They're on deck,
Okay.
as they say. They fortunately don't go too far. There's not many other uses. There's not many other uses for these.
There's not daily eclipses in
Nope.
in Hamilton, Ohio.
Nope. These are safe Diaz glasses.
Shielding you from the atrocity that is a Alexis Diaz attempted save.
It says, warning, never watch Diaz pitch without special eye protection. When viewing Diaz, use these glasses at all times when any part of the slider is actually visible. Any direct viewing of this slider may cause permanent damage, but if proper precautions are taken, you should be fine. There you go. And it does confirm and meets the transmission requirements. Filters for directly observing Diaz.
There you go.
So, without further ado, let's see how this goes.
Here we go.
Tell you what, it's a wild card. Overall, kind of feels like the game last night a little bit. Just kind of like we were on the fortunate end of getting the big hit.
Yep, and that, I mean, we'll talk about it, but that big hit, comes after some help from Cubs pitching. So,
And it does.
yeah, very similar to last night's game.
All right, we won't try to get synced up unless it gets a little hairy here. I'm sure I'm behind because I'm behind everybody in the world. So currently have.
I'm streaming too, so we'll see.
I just seen the 1-0 pitch. It got fouled off. We're at 1-1 now.
You're ahead of me. Look at you. I just got the foul.
Okay, well, hold on. I've always wanted to do this. I can pause it for once.
All right, let me know where you pause it, and I'll let you know where I'm at. I just got strike 2.
Okay, hold on. Yep, we got a 1-2. Diaz is coming set. Hopefully that's what you're around seeing. Diaz come set here. Line
not
the
yet.
pitch.
Bush is stepping into the box now.
Okay.
Takes the sign. Comes set. The pitch on the outside corner, called a ball.
He called that a ball?
Corner, called it a ball.
No way.
2-2 to Michael Bush.
I don't have the pause play capabilities of Nick's deal.
It's all good.
We're struggling here. I'm spinning.
Full count. Here we go again.
You seen the walk?
Just saw the walk.
Yeah, it's just it's tough to deal with, man.
You're up 3 runs, Trace.
I know.
Throw a strike.
It just doesn't seem
You're
like
facing freaking Michael Bush.
Doesn't seem hard to throw strikes. I don't really know why it's so difficult, man.
Yep.
8-9-1 coming up.
PCA pinch hitting here. Coming in cold. Ball outside.
All right, I think we're around the same. I got 13, 12, 11 on the pitch clock.
13, 12, 11, 10, 9. We're close.
Foul ball.
Yep.
All right, we need some likes, chat.
Get some likes going.
That should be an out.
Will the runner tag?
He shouldn't. He had a brain.
He did not.
He had a brain. Oh, man.
Here we go. Top of the order. Time to be nails, Diaz.
I'm not trying to. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. I'll wait till the game's over to say what I want to say so nobody can blame me for anything that happens here. I found out jinxes still do exist last night.
This is like when you said that it would be okay if Brent Suter gave up a couple runs.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Cruz.
Look at Steer.
Look at
Good play. Look at Spencer Steer, man. Let me see that
first
again.
Baseman Spencer Steer.
I know. It was a good play by Cruz, but I could have used a better throw. Good dig out. All right. Good job, everybody. Like a Major League Baseball team.
At least defensively, Elly looks like a major league player.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think Steer would do that. I'm proud of Steer.
All right.
Throw strikes, man.
Your favorite Cub.
Yeah, just throw strikes, you know? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? There was a guy on X.com the other day dunking all over some guy that watches or reads his website for making a comment about being up 2 runs in the 9th. That a walk is just as good as, or basically a walk is just as bad as a home run. Don't know if you've seen that or not.
I didn't see that one.
If you've seen it, you would know who it was. Anyways, I was about to go hard in the paint on it, but I just decided not to because I figured it would stir up some animosity among Reds Twitter.
Look at Trace Fowler showing some restraint on X.com.
I did. I just decided to let it go, but I really wanted to go.
You, man.
I really wanted just to go all in on him.
Wow.
Bam. Bam. Series win.
Well then.
Finally did it the right way.
Series win. Rubber match wins, Trace. 1-8 now.
Yeah. I mean,
rubber match win.
All right, folks. You know what time it is.
Johnny Bench has tied it up. The Cincinnati Reds win the World Series in force rate. It was a sweep. In the dirt, it's a wild pitch. Here comes Foster. The Reds win the pennant. Larkins won the game. That ball is fair. Cincinnati's ahead. 2 games to none. Welcome, Joe Randa to Cincinnati. Adam Dunn has done it again. Benzinger backing and calling. And the 1990 World Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds.
Marty, yes. This is Adam from Milwaukee. Hey, Adam, how you doing? I'm good. How are you? Good. Do you think Scott Hatterberg's a good player?
Dunn up there with the bases loaded. The outfield deep and around toward right, and the 1-0 on the way to the plate. Swung on. Long drive. Right field. And this one belongs to the Reds.
And a high drive. Hit back into deep right field. Junior has just knocked the door down to the 500 club. Benson's first home run is a walk-off winner. That ball had a family.
And De La Cruz is, oh my goodness, look at this kid run. My, oh my, that is a triple.
Matt McClain's first big league bomb. Spencer Steer's first big league hit is a home run to straightaway center field. Joey Votto's done it again.
The pitch. Votto swings high in the air. Right field. Yes! He pointed to the dugout to say, I told you. That is Joey Votto's 315th career go-ahead ribby. Only Johnny Bench had more as a Red.
And I can't tell you how much it means to play in front of everyone here in Cincinnati, as a Red, what a gift. What a tremendous gift. So thank you. Thank you.
I think I can speak for all of Reds country. Joey Votto, thank you.
High drive, left center field, racing back to the line, Bourgeois. The Reds are National League Central Division champions. In the air, left center field. Did he? He did! He did! Reds win! Reds win! Line to the right field. Genius, the first run ever with 4 home runs in a game. Can you believe it? In the air, down the right field line. Does it have a chance? The Reds have won on a 3-run home run on opening day by Ramon Hernandez. A strike away and out away is Homer Bailey. Ground ball to third. Frazier gloves. Throw to first, and Homer Bailey, for the second time in his major league career, has tossed the no-hitter. Oh, gosh. Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? Holy Moses, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air, and the Reds win. What a dream beginning to the career of Jay Bruce.
How sweet the sound, Craig. How sweet the sound. For those that are wondering, Nick is A-OK. He just happens to be taking a day off. And you know what? Everyone deserves a day off. And by day off, he's probably not, taking the day off. He's probably watching the Reds still and still doing stuff for the podcast. But you know what? Me and Craig are going to hold it down for the next hour or so. But I want to get out ahead of this. If you're coming here and you love Nick Kirby, that's A-OK. He is going to do the Reds MILB and all the usuals on the podcast for the morning. So that will be a treat for you. But for now, you get me and Craig. We get to run through everything that was the Cincinnati Reds today. And thankfully for us, Craig, it was I don't want to say it was a surprise, but it was a pleasant watch for the most part. I mean, Diaz got the heart rate going a little bit there towards the end, but he does what he always does, it seems, and fixes it. That's what we're going to call it.
Yeah, Diaz did his job. He got your heart rate going, but Nick Lodolo, yet another solid outing out of him. Nick Martinez in a role that he seems to really have embraced out of the bullpen, coming in and really being nails as well. And just an overall, for the most part, stress-free day for the Reds, which was nice.
Yeah, and I don't think they played perfectly. To be honest, I don't think the Reds played perfectly. There were some opportunities they let slip through the cracks, but ultimately they got the big hit. They got the big hit, which I'm sure we'll get to, and I'm sure we'll talk about on the DSC Deep Drive of the Day, which we'll do just a moment. But before we do that, Craig is going to take the honors here a little bit on the box score recap. Now, Craig, I will tell you, I could have set you up for success here. I could have had the graphic made and the whole deal, but the reality is that that's not the case. I do have like 6 screens going at once. I probably could do some fun stuff though. I'll tell you what I will do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, let's do this. Ready? Craig, box score recap. Ready? You ready, Craig? Ready?
I'm ready when you are.
I was born ready, Craig. Take it away, brother.
I love it. Well, happy Sunday to everybody. Happy June 2nd. Real quick. Happy birthday to my dad. He turned 76 today. So
what's your dad's name?
My dad's name is Brad.
Brad, happy birthday, Brad.
Not sure if he's watching or not, but if he is, happy birthday. Shout out to you. You a real one. We'll pick this one up in the second inning. Jake Fraley led off the inning by taking an 0-2 pitch the other way and hustled out a double to extend his hit streak to 7 games. That was the first 0-2 hit that Ben Brown had given up in his last 43 0-2 counts and would serve as a little bit of a sign of how the second inning would go. Tyler Stevenson would take another 0-2 pitch to the opposite field for a base hit. And Jacob Hurtubise would take a fastball off his back knee, 98 miles an hour off the back knee, to load the bases with nobody out. Fraley would score on a Jonathan India sacrifice fly to center field. Will Benson would strike out, but TJ Friedl would come up, and after 2 straight curveballs to start his at-bat, Ben Brown went to the well one too many times, threw Friedl another curveball, and Friedl would make him pay, hitting his first home run of the season, a 3-run, 103.7 mile per hour, 377-foot line drive to right field, giving the Reds a 4-0 lead. In the third, the Reds would play add-on. Jeimer Candelario would lead off the inning with a single through the right side of the infield, and it would advance to third on a Spencer Steeler single to right field. Fraley would come to the plate and pick up an RBI with a sacrifice fly to right field, giving the Reds a 5-0 lead. Steer, unfortunately, would get picked off of first, killing the momentum, and Stevenson struck out to end the inning. In the fifth, after a Miguel Amaya ground out to third base to start the inning, Nick Lodolo would give up a weak single to Nico Hoerner, and then Seiya Suzuki would extend his hitting streak to 10 games with a single through the right side, sending Hoerner to third. The Cubs would get on the board when Cody Bellinger did what Cody Bellinger does, sending a single to center field, driving in Nico Hoerner, and sending Suzuki to third base. Christopher Morel would smoke a line drive at Candelario, who couldn't quite handle it but picked it up in time to turn the 5-4-3 double play and get out of the inning with the Reds hanging on to a 5-1 lead. In the sixth, Patrick Wisdom and Ian Happ would start off the bottom of the sixth with back-to-back singles through the left side. Lodolo would induce a double play ball from Dansby Swanson, but Swanson, hustling out of the box, would beat the throw, resulting in runners at first and third with one out. Another grounder up the middle would score Wisdom, but a nice play from Elly resulted in Swanson being out at second. Amaya flew out to right to end the inning, with the score sitting at the Reds 5 and the Cubs 2. And that's where this one would end after Diaz comes in the ninth, gives up a walk to Michael Busch to start the inning, but gets a flyout from PCA, a ground ball from Nico Hoerner, and would strike out Seiya Suzuki to put the nail in the coffin and give the Reds a 5-2 win, a series win, and their first rubber match win in their last 9 attempts. Lodolo would end the day, 6 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, only 3 strikeouts on the day. We'll talk about that a little bit, I'm sure, and 1 walk. The bullpen was nails again, and again, the Reds would come up with a 5-2 victory.
That they would, and we had a DSC deep drive of the day, and it was maybe not the farthest home run that's going to probably ever be hit in the career of TJ Friedl, but it was one of the most impactful home runs hit by TJ Friedl in a very, very long time. Why? Because it was first home run of the year, Craig. I don't know if you've been keeping track, but that's number 1. Now, he has been out for quite some time, so we'll give him a little bit of a pass. We'll talk about Fraley here in a little bit. But it was, as you said, Craig, 103.7 off the bat, 377 feet, 21 degrees off the bat. And the deep drive of the day is sponsored by DSC, and they are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. And thank you to John and his team at DSC. All right, Craig, here's the thing. There's a lot of different angles we can go off this at the very beginning. I decided, you know what, as the rundown, I think it's most appropriate to discuss the home run that was hit, obviously, by TJ Friedl. And that's the kind of thing I was talking about yesterday a little bit, is that, you know, you look back through this game, and if you're a Cubs fan, just like the Reds fans yesterday said, well, you're 1 pitch away. I mean, you're 1 pitch away from really the game being completely different. Well, I think that's the reality of maybe not a ton of games, but that's the reality of what I would say more games than maybe we would like to suggest over the course of a season. Is it comes down to one big at bat. Do you get the big hit or do you not? Can you extend the inning or can you not? Thankfully, you had mentioned it. You have a kid that goes out there that I think at the time had not given up a run in I think 14 or 15 straight innings, and you know, for all intents and purposes, he did get roughed up, I think, his first inning of his big league career. But outside of that, he's been nailed. So TJ Friedl caught a breaking ball, and thankfully he didn't do what Hurtubise did, which was launch it down the right field line, because unfortunately at Wrigley Field, it's like 355 feet down the line to right. So you'd have to almost absolutely crush one to get it out. But he didn't. He left the yard, and it felt like from that point forward, Nick, I say Nick because that's what I say every other day. From that point forward, Craig, it felt like the Reds were in control pretty much the rest of the game. I never felt like it was in doubt per se.
No, I felt like I said in the opening, it felt like a relatively stress-free day for the Reds today, which has been certainly uncommon to say the least. But you talk about Ben Brown. He came into this when he was called up by the Cubs. He was used in relief his first 2 outings. He gave up 7 runs in those first 2 appearances, got beat up a little bit, but then they moved him to the starting rotation on April 9th. And since then, he's had a 1.55 ERA and 40 2/3 innings pitched. Like you mentioned, came into today with 14 straight scoreless innings. So this is not a guy who is a scrub by any means. But TJ Friedl, just kind of a professional hitter. I mean, we talk about it with a number of guys in this lineup sometimes, and across the league as we face others, Cody Bellinger and some others, but just a professional hitter. And you saw today, I mentioned it in the box score recap, but he gets back-to-back curveballs to start the at-bat from Ben Brown, and then gets a third one, and Ben Brown left it up in the zone, and TJ Friedl is not going to let that one get by him and took it deep. So, yeah, I mean, I think Friedl getting on the board is nice. He ended up last season with, I think, 15 home runs. So I think, get him started a little bit. I know, like you mentioned, he's been hurt, and see if we can't get him going on a little bit of a power streak. One of the you mentioned Jacob Hurtubise as well. A lineup with Hurtubise and Friedl is interesting. Obviously, Friedel's been a really good go-to in the leadoff spot when he's healthy. Hurtubise brings something unique in his own sense in terms of the at-bats that he works. That line drive that he hit to right field today that ended up in the gloves of Seiya Suzuki was a home run in 27 out of 30 MLB ballparks, Trace.
Yeah.
Just so happens that one of those ballparks that it's not a home run happens to be the friendly confines of Wrigley Field. So
I agree. Hurtubise has had some good at bats. I know ultimately maybe his stat line today, he ends up getting, he's 1 for 3, but and he needed to have obviously a strikeout, but ultimately he had a couple what I would deem as a good at bat. I think TJ Friedl, I mean, he didn't have a great day either though. Like I'm he's 1 for 5. He's currently hitting 167. It's such a small sample size, though, that you just can't make much of it yet. You like to think that, or you can like to lean on the fact that last year TJ Friedl was one of your better players, so you expect him to kind of round out whatever numbers he may have over the next few weeks. You give him a little bit more sample size, it'll all pan itself out. But again, that's a perfect example of what I was kind of trying to hint at yesterday was you got to kind of, and again, I don't know what the right word is. Somebody that's a wordsmith would be better than me at this, but like, I guess luck is the only term that comes to mind with this stuff. It's like of all of the swings that TJ needed to basically help the Reds today, that was the biggest spot of the game where he made a swing in. And it just seems like, Craig, the last, and again, people are going to maybe say like, well, that's baseball. It's like, it just seems like that hasn't happened for the Reds a lot. It feels like they get back-to-back base hits with 2 outs in the inning, and then they just can't get the guys in with 2 outs. It's like, or they never seem to be able to start an inning off and kind of get a rally going. The bases were loaded with nobody out, and to come away with only 1 run there, which is what they were kind of staring at, right? You have, for those that can't remember, you have bases loaded, Jonathan Indy at the plate. He hits a sacrifice fly, did his job, no problem there. You have Will Benson, he strikes out, and then you have TJ Friedl goes down 0-2, and you're starting to think to yourself like, okay, it's great that we got a run, Craig, but here we go again. You can't put up any crooked numbers. You can't find a way to kind of be able to break a game open. And again, I guess yesterday they broke a game open, but it was because they can't catch fly balls out in Wrigley. It had really little to nothing to do with Cincinnati. So it just felt like that was such a breath of fresh air to see TJ hit a home run in that spot. And again, I can't overemphasize how big of a spot that was and how big of a home run it was, because they're not all the same. And that one was on the kind kind of that was the reason the Reds won today, in my opinion. You know, it's hard to pick one single thing that happened and say, well, that was it, man. So the only other thing I wanted to add on here really quickly we could talk about is like we got some great production out of 3-4-5 today. Elly De La Cruz is struggling bad, which I don't know if we want to talk about that today or not, but Candy, Steer, Fraley, they come up with 3, 5, 6, 7 hits today. Fraley 3 for 3. Although, you know, I don't know how you felt about that whole bag situation of him, you know, not diving back to the bag.
I don't really want to talk about oversliding or losing contact with a bag again tonight, Trace. I think we've had enough of that conversation over the last 24 hours. So
what was he doing there? Really?
I really don't know. I have no idea.
Did he just think he was going to get back super, super easy and then just lost his footing? Like he did know in the back of his mind, Craig, that he knows that if he was safe there, that it was a balk. Like that was three times off the mound. He could have. I don't know. I mean, it's just those are the small things, though. It just seems like, what have we? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't know. And you know, how many times have we talked on this show, whether it be you and I or Nick, about big moments and leaving guys on base and the batting average with runners in scoring position. I mean, last night, the Reds, I think, were 3 for 13 or something like that with runners in scoring position. They had another opportunity in the 9th today where Hurtubise starts off the inning with a single, then India lines out, but Benson walks, and so you've got 2 men on with only 1 out, and then Friedl strikes out looking and De La Cruz strikes out. So, you know, I don't want to get into negativity today. The Reds won a series.
Right.
And won a rubber match. So there's a lot of positive things to talk about today. We talk about Friedl and being a professional hitter. Let's talk about Rake Fraley. I mean, the guy, when healthy, just seems to hit. His batting average now on the season is up to 295 on the season. I mean, I know that we're lacking the power out of him. I don't think he has a home run yet this year. He's been injured part of the year. But even today, I mean, he goes 3 for 3 with a sacrifice fly RBI. He's got a double down the left field line. He's got 2 singles. I mean, he's just a guy that hits the ball and puts the ball in play. And when he's healthy, he's a real big contributor to this lineup, especially against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, the only semi-concern, again, to be fair, you know, we could utilize what we do sometimes, especially on this show, is we will discuss, obviously, sabermetrics to a certain extent or analytics to a certain extent to try to rationalize whether what we're seeing is true from guys or what we're seeing maybe is just a little bit of a fairy tale and it's just going to kind of cool itself off. I guess I'll get your opinion on this. I'm going to pull it up here for the viewers here while we're kind of going through this. I guess... Let me pull this up here. Is there any concern with the bubbles inside of Savant? And I only say that because it does feel like when you watch Fraley, sometimes you are questioning whether or not this is going to consistently stay. But at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, he's hitting 270. I think now he's almost hitting 290. I have to pull it up here after today's games because they don't have the updated stats on Savant immediately, but I don't know, Craig. I think I guess my point is not to be overly again, I'm not trying to be pessimistic about it. I'm just saying that there's some semi-concerns that this guy doesn't have a whole lot of pop right now, and we'll see where it goes. Again, I'm not trying to downplay him by any stretch of the imagination. Was a great hitter last year, and when you look up and down this lineup and you can make fun of the averages that I've done before, he's not one of them, to be fair. Do you have any concern of that or your thoughts on that? Or
no, the only reason it's concerning is because the rest of the lineup isn't producing any power either. And so with a guy like Jake Fraley, where you may have expected it, it sticks out that he's not producing that power because nobody in the lineup is producing power. So, I mean, the Reds currently sit coming into today 20th in the MLB with home runs, with only 54 on the year. Are tied for 20th with the Pirates, right? So, right. I mean, as a team, it's not like they're belting the ball out and Jake Fraley just isn't getting it done. The entire team isn't producing power at the plate, and so I think that leads to certain guys that you expected that power from to kind of stand out more than they would otherwise. If other guys were picking it up and hitting the ball out and we were getting 2 to 3 home runs a game, we probably wouldn't even be thinking about Jake Fraley not hitting the ball out of the ballpark. But because we're getting 1.5 home runs a game at best, then it starts to stick out. Well, who are the guys that you're not getting home runs from that maybe you expected them from? Elly De La Cruz, Candelario, Fraley, Ty Steve. I mean, the list goes on of guys that maybe you would have liked to get more power out of this year that hasn't happened. But for me, Jake Fraley can fill a role in terms of getting on base, hitting, getting base hits. I think he has the opportunity to be clutch in certain moments. We saw with the sac fly with him driving in a run in moments that mattered. His other hit in the 8th came with a runner on base. Spencer Steer was on. So, he's been able to do it in moments. Hasn't necessarily translated in power, but for me personally, it's exasperated by the fact that nobody's hitting for power.
Yeah, and I would also add the fact that I think there's a lot of swing and miss too. If you're going to be a baseball team that's going to strike out the way this team does, then I'd like to think that you can find a way to hit the ball out of the ballpark too. You can't have one without the other. I can live with the strikeouts from Will Benson and Elly and whoever else, Steer or whoever else it is you want to add into that list, if they have some considerable pop. But that's just not been the case. So, but you know what? I wanted to say, and again, hopefully this doesn't come off as like a pessimistic, discussion. I think it's just more or less like, okay, what do we have? What don't we have? And we got some production out of 3-4-5 today, which was nice to see. And hopefully if again, Elly's just this weird spark plug that, as soon as you start to complain or as soon as you start to worry about him or you start to say, oh man, like, maybe some of this stuff is catching up to him in regards to the swing and miss, or he's starting to have a little more chase than he had previously. He rattles off 3 or 4 games where he looks like he's the best player on the planet, and then you just kind of like sit down again, and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to give him another week to kind of cool off of what I just seen. And I don't know when that'll all even itself out, but we certainly need Elly to start producing a little bit more, obviously, here soon, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, of course it is. I mean, you expect him to be the best player on the team, then you're going to expect him to do better than 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts. I'm a big proponent of the fact that I think Elly's just way too much in his head right now. I think he's trying to guess up there every pitch. He's trying to figure out what's the pitcher going to throw. The first 2 at-bats today, Ben Brown gets him striking out on curveballs. Both of them were down and in. Comes up for the 3rd time. He's behind 0-2. What would you be thinking if you were behind 0-2 and the guy had struck you out previously on 2 curveballs down and in? You're probably thinking, okay, maybe it'll be another curveball down and in. But no, Ben Brown goes to his fastball, middle, strikes him out looking. Elly's left, befuddled and looking kind of silly because he strikes out on a pitch that everybody and their mom thinks, right, oh, he should have just crushed that ball. But you're a major league hitter facing a major league pitcher, and you're trying to figure out, what do I need to do to be ready to hit this ball, instead of just trusting your hands. And Elly's got some of the fastest hands in the game when he's letting them ride. But right now, when he's trying to trust his brain more than he's trusting his hands, he's just stuck looking at fastballs down the middle more times than not. And so, we went through this similar stretch last year. I had a brief interaction on X.com today with somebody about Elly and his struggles. Look, Elly struggled for the last 2 weeks. There's absolutely no doubt about that the last 2 weeks, Elly De La Cruz has been struggling. Okay. However, here's what I'll say about Elly, right? The last 2 weeks have been brutal, but if you look at his stats, right? The last 2 weeks, he's hitting 140 with a 180 slugging percentage. He's striking out 44% of the times. But the first 2 weeks of the month, he was fine. He was hitting 275 with an on base of 362. So, and then if you look at his overall stats coming in today, he's 277 with a 516 slugging percentage. So yeah, he's been struggling for the last 2 weeks. But again, this kid's 22 years old. He's learning how to adapt to major league pitching. And quite frankly, his book is so small as well that pitchers are still adapting to him. It's not like this guy has thousands of at-bats that pitchers are going to attack him the same way over and over. He's adjusting. Pitchers are adjusting. He's trying to figure it out, and so I'm going to have a lot of grace with Elly De La Cruz. Certainly frustrating to watch. you definitely don't want your number 2 hole hitter striking out 4 times. But I don't know that there's really a whole lot that I would do about it, I guess. And maybe that's where the conversation really comes in, is you're certainly not going to send him down to Triple-A. I think everybody in the chat, you and I will both agree there's zero conversation around him going back to Triple-A ever in his career. He's here to stay.
Right.
What he brings defensively overshines a lot of that, and what he can do when he's hot, outshines a lot of the struggles that he's had. But he's going to have these stretches here where he struggles, and whether that's because he's young and he's trying to adjust, or whether that's he's young and he's just getting in his head, whatever it may be, Elly will work his way out of this. And David Bell has a responsibility to him and to his future to allow him to work through it. And unfortunately, that means that we're going to be frustrated for, a couple weeks from time to time. But we're also going to have stretches where you and I and everybody else think that Elly De La Cruz is one of the best players on the planet.
I think Elly's just raw, the difference between Matt McLain and Elly, in my opinion, and certainly there's some age difference there, but I just think that they're two stylistically different players, right? One guy has the capability and the ceiling to do things that Matt McLain would never consider even doing, right? The situation yesterday where you're going to go first to third on Pete Crow Armstrong, that's like maybe 1 or 2 guys in all of Major League Baseball that are going to do something like that, or have the speed to be able to do something like that. And if you want to knock Elly and say that, well, you're really, a lot of the things that you love about Elly are basically just his speed. Well, when you're world class at something, of course you're going to point to that immediately. So I don't want to act like Elly's only speed, but right now, the only elite thing that I can see Elly doing is the speed part. Now, I will agree with you in saying that I also feel as if there's all of the, sometimes when you get in an organization, right, and you finally get to the top, you get advice from all of these different people about how to go about your business, or what you should be, or what you should be doing. And of course, some folks are going to point towards whether it's the development staff in the minor leagues, or whether it's David Bell and his staff at the major leagues. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, and again, I don't want to act like coaching doesn't matter at all in Major League Baseball, but I don't put a lot of stock into it personally. I think a lot of it comes down to the individual player and whether they want to become great or not great. And over the next year or 2 years, every time someone tells me, well, he's only 22, I don't think, and again, I'm not saying that there's not some validity to this. The whole pitching thing, like whether guys will figure him out and he'll figure pitchers out, I don't put a lot of stock in that either, because at the end of the day, like Tony Gwynn, and I know I'm using an absurd example here, but that's what I'm trying to do. Like, no pitcher ever figured Tony Gwynn out. Why? Because he was just a great hitter. He figured out how to be a great hitter. You're not going to figure out, Juan Soto. Forget it. You just better execute pitches. And if you don't, then he's going to hit you. Simple as that. As far as Elly goes, he's going to have to take some of this raw, basically unbelievable talent he has and shift it into a little bit more of what I would call a skilled trade. And I think Matt McLain has a lot more skilled trades, but but Matt McLain lacks, if you want to call it that, the God-given or essentially the talent to do some of the things that Elly can do. And hopefully, I guess my point is like over the next 2 years, Elly starts to develop these skills and he becomes a little more refined in these stretches of baseball that we obviously become frustrated by. Understandable when you're young. They become few and far between. Simple as that. I'm not going to make too much out of this whole Elly thing all year long. Of course, I would like for him to have a little less strikeout. Almost selfishly, Craig, because he's so lethal with his speed. It's almost like, it reminds me of the Major League scene, the Goofy movie with the Cleveland, we'll call it the Guardians so we don't get canceled. But, it's like if you hit a pop-up, you got to do push-ups. Like, just put the ball on the ground and make them make a play. And we've seen how many times, Craig, where he puts the ball in play and the defense makes a mistake, or they throw a ball away, or whatever may happen. So that's my whole kind of thought process with Elly in general, is that the age thing is true, Craig, yes. But I don't think just because he gets older, he's going to get better. It's going to require him to essentially refine his skill set And it's not just going to happen. He's going to have to work at it, and I hope he does. And the last thing I'll say, Craig, is he's using service time for the Cincinnati Reds. So that, like, and that's not Elly's fault, but, like, we can't keep saying, and I'm not saying you and me, like, as a Reds fan base, we can't keep saying, well, he's young. Well, I mean, with all due respect, like, what, we only get 3 years of service time where he's a great player? You know? I mean, is that fair or not fair? You know, it's like, that's, with all due respect, I'm not hoping Elly basically struggles and figures it out with 2 years left on his basically his service agreement, and then somebody else reaps all the benefits later down the road. Like, I'm not impatient's the right word, but it becomes a little frustrating to always hear how young he is. It's like, well, there's other guys in the league that are young too. So let's at least be fair on both sides of the aisle, and let's hope Elly can figure it out relatively soon. Nick Lodolo, I guess. I mean, more of the same from him. I mean, I just don't think it's even remotely close at this point in my mind as far as who the best arm is for this team, and it's by far him. And that's Hunter Green's closer than maybe I want to give him credit for, but I don't know. Your overall thoughts on Lodolo today? It's kind of like he did what he's always does, kind of just gets guys out.
Well, here's what I didn't think that Lodolo actually had his best stuff today, which was a really good sign because he was able to battle through and get through 6 innings, only giving up 2 runs, despite the fact that he didn't have his best stuff today. Lodolo today threw 19 curveballs. He got 5 swings on those curveballs, 0 whiffs. That's a pitch that he typically goes to and gets 50% whiffs on. So for him to throw 19 of those, only get 5 swings with 0 whiffs, either told me that the Cubs had a really good approach, and here we go with the trolls in the chat saying, oh, look, the Cubs had a good approach, and the Reds never have a good approach at the plate. Well, whether it was approach or just it wasn't as good of a pitch as it normally is, whatever it may be, like, the curveball wasn't there. And so the fastball was working for him. He had 22% whiff rate on the fastball today, and the changeup was working for him. And so, you know, they mentioned on the broadcast, oh, today's the first time in the season that he had a higher whiff, more whiffs on his changeup than on his curveball. But even his changeup, he only got 23% whiff compared to 37.5% on the season. So I really don't think he had his best stuff today, but I think that says a lot about what Nick Lodolo's floor and ceiling can be for this team when he stays healthy, because he was able to do it today without his best stuff.
That's fair. I think it's fair. I mean, you mentioned in the box score recap, the double play that Candelario made, or almost didn't make, however you want to look at it. It's a massive play in the game. I mean, you kind of start to feel like the wheels are getting a little wobbly. Certainly didn't feel like they were going to fall off, getting a little wobbly, and you get a big double play. And you for a team that doesn't turn a lot of double plays, playing a team that doesn't hit into a lot of double plays, the Reds have gotten on back-to-back nights a big double play opportunity, and it happened. So, you know, I will see how many times I can say double plays in, you know, maybe 30 seconds, which I was going for the record there. But it just, again, it goes back to the point, like you said, you find ways to throw strikes, man. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is to make sure that you don't give free passes and allow guys to get opportunities that otherwise, you know, you wouldn't have put yourself in if you just threw the ball over the plate. Very rarely is Nick Lodolo and even, I mean, at this point, I feel confident in saying Hunter Green as well. Very rarely are those guys going to get hit all over the yard anymore. And I mean, Hunter has in the past. I'm not suggesting it, but Lodolo seems especially difficult for me, for them to kind of pound base hit after base hit after base hit and be able to score a multitude of runs. It's more or less going to have to be either defensive induced or walk induced to kind of put up a bunch of crooked numbers against Lodolo. So we needed it. It was a rubber match. I think finally, Craig, we got one. You mentioned 1-8. That's where we're at now. 1-8.
1-8 on rubber matches. Yep.
Unbelievable. And we finally won one the right way, right? You win the opening day, you win the opening game, and then you just close it out on one of the next 2 days. You don't have to sweep. You don't have to do anything crazy like that, but they finally did it. Congratulations to them.
Yep, and they didn't have to do it late, which was nice. They get the runs early. They hold on to a lead throughout the entire game. It was great. You mentioned Hunter Green when you're talking about Nick Lodolo. I think one of the things that those two guys have is that their stuff is really good. So you've got two guys in Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo that Hunter Green only has 2 real pitches that he can go to regularly. He's got a third that he's working on. Nick Lodolo is the same way. He only really throws 3 pitches. So if you're going to have a limited repertoire of pitches that you can throw, you have to be able to throw them where you want to throw them and locate those balls, or your stuff just has to be absolutely nasty, especially if you want to be a starter in this league. It's one thing to be a closer and come in with 2 pitches. It's another thing to expect to go 6-7 innings and only have 2 or 3 go-to pitches. And so for Lodolo to continue to do this with only really 3 pitches in his repertoire is really impressive and just goes to show how good those 3 pitches are. So, impressive stuff again from him today. He pounded the zone, 60 strikes and out of 90 pitches. It's about as much as you could expect out of a guy to throw 2/3 of his pitches in the zone. So, I think ultimately you got to be really happy with what you got out of Lodolo today. And again, the rubber match win, moving on to the next topic. I mean, they had lost their 8 straight rubber matches. And so they had I don't have the stat in front of me anymore, but they have a winning record in game 1s on the season.
Yeah.
On series. I think now, 13 or 14 wins in series openers. And yet their rubber matches, they were 0 for their last 8. So, who knows what to really attribute that to? I can't imagine that they're really overthinking the fact of, oh God, we got to win this series and then pressuring in game 3. But look, at the end of the day, you're talking about a team that hasn't won back-to-back series since the opening 2 series of the season. So, to win a rubber match, get a series under their belt. Now they go to Colorado for 3 that are quite frankly winnable if they play the way that they are capable of playing in an atmosphere that will be conducive to hitting home runs, which they haven't been doing lately. So, I think this is a big 3-game set for them going to Colorado and need to really come away with a series win.
Massive 3-game set that we'll talk about in just a second. Just a second. And by just a second, you can tell here, sometimes I don't always run the rundown here. So get that back fixed. All right. We got some supers that we're going to get to today. Justin said, I hate the Cubs. I'll say it again. He said, Justin said, I hate the Cubs. Always great to beat those Hyde Park yuppies. I don't know if Hyde Park appreciates the Cubs, but maybe he's talking about the Hyde. Is there a Hyde Park? I thought it was Lincoln Park in Chicago. Oh.
Isn't Lincoln Park the band?
There is a Lincoln Park fan, but there's also a Lincoln Park in Chicago. I'm fairly confident in that.
Okay.
Fairly confident.
Okay.
Can't say for sure. Molly would like to do a wellness check for Reed. Reed was in the chat. Shout out 988. If you ever need any help, as always, if you're feeling like Reed is right now, you can give 988 a call and or text. Life is better with you in it. Michael Rolfe, he does this every day almost, it seems. It's like guys just that streak Joey Votto was on where he hit like 9 home runs in 9 straight games. We all remember that. And then he finally didn't hit a home run, and it was because he hit a ball literally off the top edge of the wall. Shout out Joey Votto. That's basically what kind of streak we got going on here for old Michael Rolfe. Some call him meat. ATOBTTR, for those who don't know what that means and this one belongs to the Reds. Dunk. Craig's here. Celebs are out. I hate Walmart. I hate online ordering because I'm stupid and ship stuff for the wrong places, but I do love cooking meat and when the Reds win. What a wild super that was, Rolfe. All over the place. Game time. Because why? Where else would you go to get tickets outside the Game Time app? If you've not downloaded the Game Time app, it's because you haven't been listening to this show and or you don't have a brain. One of the two. Or maybe both. Maybe both. But if you do have a brain, and you are listening to the show right now, which chances are you are if you're paying attention to me, I'd like you to download the Game Time app and use the code CINCY, CINCY. That's CINCY. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Okay? Terms do apply. So keep an eye on that. I'm going to say it one more time. Terms do apply. But you can download the app. 2 clicks. I don't know if you know this, Craig. 2 clicks. Checkout. Click all-in pricing, Craig. Guess what? You don't get at the end of the app You don't get a big surprise like the big fees, you know? You never seen some of those other ticketing processing apps where it's like they got a service fee, then they got a digital fee, and then they got a convenience fee, and then they got a delivery fee. And at the end of it all, you're like, wow, I thought the tickets were only this price, and instead they're this price. You don't get that on the Game Time app. You can download it, use the code Cincy, CINCY, you get $20 off your first purchase. Justin is chiming back in. He says, hashtag Chatterbox Woodstock, make it trend. Maybe so. Chatterbox Woodstock. We are going to be on the road this next week and for Chatterbox, so there'll be some news coming out mañana. I think that's tomorrow in Spanish. I took 2 years of Spanish, so hopefully it paid off for me.
Bilingual Fowler right there. Bilingual Fowler.
Craig, did you take Spanish?
I did. I took 6 years of Spanish. Junior
6
high
years.
6 years.
Well, you should be fluent.
Well, I took 6 years of Spanish, but I finished it up 18 years ago. So, it's been a while. My wife is fluent in Spanish.
Really?
So yeah, she'll speak Spanish with anybody that wants to speak Spanish. Her job loves it because she's bilingual, and anybody that needs to speak Spanish at her work, she's right there. So we lived in Miami for 2 years. That helped. It does help. You know where else it helps if you want to speak Spanish? Where's that?
Mexico. Don't know if you've ever been. Nick Martinez. Let's talk about him.
Let's just say, Trace, real quick. Game Time app. I'm going to be in Cincinnati.
Okay.
The beginning of August.
Yes.
And so I am looking forward to using the Game Time app for the first time because I'll be in Cincinnati and looking to go to Reds games for the first time in years. It's been a long time. So I told Nick, maybe we'll do a little C-Box outing when I'm in town. Might be able to line something up and see. There's 6 home games there when I'm in town. So maybe we can make one of them work to get some people together.
That's good. One thing the Reds have done that's actually I don't know if they get enough credit for is I actually think they've done a really good job at the ballpark. Like, Great American Ballpark obviously hasn't changed in regards to its structure, and there's not like this huge renovation. But it seems like every year they kind of add little small things every single year, and over the course of the past, call it 10 to 15 years, I do think it's a quite considerable difference, and I think the overall ballpark experience down at Great American is a good one. It's a good one. So if you're looking to go down there to the ballpark, use the Game Time app, as always. I put on here Martinez again.
Real quick, Trace, sorry. You've been trying to talk about Nick Martinez for 8 minutes, and I keep derailing it.
Please.
The chat is very upset that you haven't updated the score bug. Just
my God,
throwing it out there that
so
the chat
here's
is
the
very
thing.
upset at you and said Nick would never do such a thing.
Well, he wouldn't. You know why? Because I mean, that's how fast it was, though. Can't say it wasn't fast, chat. You asked for it, it was done in like 2 seconds. And I'll be honest, I made a mistake. I did the first one correctly. The second rundown was not correct, but I looked down and I seen that the score wasn't 0-0. So I thought that it automatically updated for both when I fixed it the first time. That's an excuse. I don't know if it's a good enough one, but that's what actually happened. Nick Martinez,
screen, huh?
One last time. I put on here again, Nick, and I say Nick again. Gee, many Christmas. This is what happens to do a show with the same guy too many times. I put it on here again because you wanted to speak about this, Craig, and I don't know what it is with him. But I said this before. I mean, I'm not trying to take credit for it, but I will say, like, he's 100% penciled himself in to this role for forever for this team. I mean, it would take something crazy happen for him ever to become a starter again, just based off of how well he's done this role, which has come out of the pen and obviously put up zeros.
I was actually really surprised that they turned to Diaz in the 9th. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I thought about
Martinez
that.
Was rolling. He only had 22 pitches through the 2 innings that he threw. Only gave up 1 hit, had 3 strikeouts. I was very surprised that they turned to Diaz. But Nick Martinez, as a reliever, has been absolutely dominant. As a starter this year, he's obviously started 5 games this year. He's got a 3.48 batting average against and an ERA that is not showing on my sheet for some reason, but beyond reproach. Versus as a reliever, he's come in now and he's had a batting average against of 147. I know that there's a lot that goes into kind of the mentality of a reliever versus a starter and the amount of time that you have to get ready and whatever it may be. But that big of a difference is really stark. And I don't really have anything to really attribute it to other than the fact that he's just comfortable. And it just seems like you said that's got to be a role that he's in, whether it's the starting pitcher has us in the game, but has thrown too many pitches and we need somebody to eat some innings and keep the game within reach or keep the lead. Or in this scenario where I thought he could have come in and just finished out the game and saved the bullpen as a whole, or even as we've seen recently in his last outing against the Dodgers, where he came in after an opener, went 4 1/3 of one-hit baseball. I mean, look, if you're going to have to use him in an extended role as a quote-unquote starter, the very clear answer is that he's got to have an opener. That's seemingly been the way that he's responded best. But as a reliever this year, he's just been one of the best out of the bullpen for the Reds. And, having a guy that can eat up 2, 3, maybe even 4 innings out of the bullpen is really valuable. Really valuable. And so I know a lot of people think that they may have overpaid for Nick Martinez, but you may not see it in the box scores and everything else, but what he does for the rest of the bullpen and saving arms is extremely important.
Yeah, I think that there's without question some value in things that happen that aren't directly reflected in some statistical nature that we try to justify people's value on a day in, day out basis, right? Like you just don't know what effect that guys like Nick Martinez has on the next day. And some of these starters, for that matter, what kind of effect they have on the next day when they're able to gut through an extra 2 innings when you thought they were on the ropes. Hunter Green last night was on the ropes. You can say whatever you want, but he got himself in a position where if he couldn't find a way to throw strikes after he gives up a grand slam to Suzuki, he never gets out of that inning. And the next thing you know, you're burning Martinez yesterday, maybe instead of today. And there's always a combination effect of things that happen that you just don't ever really realize until either they go super negatively for you, or obviously in Martinez's case, positive for you. And it is something to be said about Nick Martinez and what he's been doing out of the bullpen. Let's just talk about some.
I was blind. He's got 5 starts on the season. He's 0-3 with a 7.36 ERA. He's come out of the bullpen 7 times now, 2-0, 0.83 ERA. Right. So
that'll even out eventually a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, but he's not going to end the season with a sub-1 ERA, I don't think. I don't think anybody would expect that. But even still, the ERA as a starter in those 5 starts kind of gives you a little bit of more insight into the struggles he had. So, I think whether it's an opener or just coming in later in the game, I think Martinez has certainly become an anchor of the bullpen.
Couldn't agree more. All right, last. Let's do this. I was gonna maybe go on another thing about Martinez. I'll save it for another day. Roster moves. You have some things that you want to hit on here from a roster standpoint. Williamson, some good news on him, and then of course, obviously the Wilson and why can't I think of his name? Left-hander Alex Young. They obviously optioned him. So anything that you want to add or run down through those roster moves?
Well, let's start with the move that happened, and that was with Justin Wilson being activated today off the IL with left shoulder tightness. The Reds decided to option Alex Young to Triple-A Louisville. Justin Wilson in 16 games this season with the Reds, 1-0, 10 2/3 innings pitched, with his ERA up around 5.9. Alex Young, 3 games back from the injured list, 2 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs. At the end of the day, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation, is that the Reds bullpen is extremely deep and extremely limited in terms of options. And so Alex Young kind of became the de facto had to be optioned right now to bring back Justin Wilson if you thought that he needed to be in your bullpen. Not really sure that the Reds are ever going to cut a guy that's making, the money that Justin Wilson's making when they have somebody the option. But, just calling out the fact that Justin Wilson replaces Alex Young in the bullpen today. But you've got two moves, that one of which they talked about on the broadcast today, that are seemingly imminent, right? So Emilio Pagan is expected to be activated for this weekend. And then Brandon Williamson had another rehab start today. He's on the 60-day IL with a left shoulder strain as well. He's ready to be reinstated whenever the Reds determine that he's ready. Today, 4 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. Overall now in his rehab starts, 13 2/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, and 11 strikeouts. So, I saw some chatter on X.com today about moving Graham Ashcraft to the bullpen. But again, we're just stuck in a position where you want to talk about all these moves, but you have to make corresponding moves. So you've got Pagan ready to come back. You've got Brandon Williamson seemingly ready to come back. And your only bullpen arms with options are Alexis Diaz, Fernando Cruz, and Sam Moll. So it's going to be a very interesting couple days to a week here for the Reds and the decisions that they make as it pertains to this roster. And I quite frankly don't know what they're going to do. It'll be very interesting to watch and see what they decide to do with Brandon Williamson. Is he a starter? Is he a bullpen arm? Does he stay in AAA? And then obviously Emilio Pagan is destined to come back to the bullpen. And what do they do with that? So as Nick likes to say, a lot of things can happen between now and then.
Right.
But either we're going to be in for some phantom IL stints, or we're going to have some moves that are going to have to be made.
Yep, some shoulder soreness is probably going to be on the way for somebody. Don't know who it's going to be, but we'll find out when we get there. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be wrong. There won't be some random 15-day IL situation. But and of course, I'm not suggesting that the Reds have ever decided to kind of manipulate the injured list. Never have they ever done that. All right, let's jump into who, what, when, where, and why. We'll do that. And then I just want to let everybody know, Reds MILB, it will be full force. It will be tomorrow morning on the podcast. Nick does a good job of always kind of breaking that up anyways and making the podcast feel a little bit different than this show. So as always, I just want to say, please go download, rate, and review the podcast. You will get the Reds MILB report tomorrow. And you know what? You'll probably see Austin Hendricks. I don't know what he'll be doing. He'll probably be hitting. Well, he probably won't be hitting, but we'll get to that another day. All right. As I'm sitting here trying to run through starting pitchers, here we go. Probable starters tomorrow, 8:40 p.m. TBD at the time when Nick was making this for the Colorado Rockies. That is not actually true. It looks like they are going to throw the right-hander Ryan Feltner. For those that don't know who Ryan Feltner is, that is fine. And the reason for that is probably because he's not been good enough in his career for you to really know who he is. He is 7-18, which is a meaningless stat, to be quite frank, as far as a pitching goes, but I'll give it to you anyway. He's 7-18 with a 5.89 ERA, and he's thrown 206 innings this throughout his career with 177 strikeouts. You back into the math for this year, and he's been a part of 11 games starting. He's 1-4 with a 5.4 ERA, and he has 49 strikeouts in 59 innings pitched with a 1.5 whip. Nothing to be all that overly concerned about, quite frankly. The Reds, on the other hand, they have Andrew Abbott, 3-5 on the year with a 3.29 ERA. Certainly somebody that we would feel good about, Craig, going out to the mound facing Ryan Feltner. But as we all know, you never know. You just never know, especially out in Coors Field. Elliot Rearing will let you know. You just probably have a tough time winning out there in Colorado. We will find out if that's going to be the case. Monday, 8:40 p.m. You can watch that on Bally Sports Ohio. Craig, I don't. It's always hard to say a team needs to sweep somebody. I don't think that's ever fair to do. You certainly would like to have a series win 100%, but it feels like, again, we're starting now to get into that part of the season that we were talking about at the beginning of May when we were talking about how tough the schedule was. If you could just get through this amount of baseball and get yourself to this position, we are getting into this position now. I'm not suggesting the rest of the season is all easy by any stretch of the imagination, but you don't have what I would call playoff team after playoff team after playoff team on the horizon. So hopefully they can find a way to go out in Colorado and at least take 2. Heaven forbid, Craig, we sweep them. That would be really nice. You come in, you win a series against the Cubs, and it just feels like it's a whole new season if that happens.
Knock on wood, right? You've got 2 pitchers tomorrow that are coming off their worst starts of the year, right? And Andrew Abbott came off his 6-inning outing against St. Louis. He gave up 7 hits, 6 earned runs. Ryan Feltner coming off a 4 1/3 inning outing against Cleveland where he gave up 8 hits, 7 runs, 5 of them earned. That was after a 6-inning 0-run showing against the Oakland Athletics, though. So most of his outings, more so than not, he's given up 3, 4, 5, 6 runs. Did have the one good outing against Oakland. But look, like you said, you're going into a series where you're scheduled to, or expected, I should say, to face Ryan Feltner, 1-4, Ty Black, 2-2, and Dakota Hudson, 2-7 on the season. And you're going to have guys in Andrew Abbott, who at times has shown the ability to be one of the better pitchers in your rotation. Frankie Montas, who you went out and paid $16 million this year to, and Graham Ashcraft, who many think also has shown really good flashes. So, yes, is it responsible to expect a sweep ever in Major League Baseball? No. But if the Reds are going to get this thing back on track, a sweep would be nice. A sweep would
be very nice. And I would say, too, if they're able to win this series, you also then back into the opportunity of having 2 of your better arms going the next series against a divisional opponent. And obviously Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, both of which you'd like to think had a little bit of success this last time around against the same team. So, might work out perfectly, might not. We shall find out. Craig, I feel like, and again, we didn't talk about this pre-show, so I have no idea. I could be putting you on the spot here. I feel like last year you had a pillow. You have a pillow?
Well, you know.
Do you have something?
We all know how great Mrs. Kirby has been.
Correct.
To allow Nick to do what he does.
Yes.
And she cares so much about this show.
Yes.
That last year she sent me my own Nick Cage pillow. Now, here's what I'll say is that I'll go ahead and do the Nick Cage. Right? So shout out to Andrea Kirby for the Nick Cage pillow.
Looks so good too.
I've also kind of started to do my own little thing where
we got some more.
I show off one of the cards from my collection, and so today it seems fitting. I had 2 options, obviously, but I think it's fairly fitting that today we go with the home run Deep South drive of the game hitter TJ Friedl. So this is a rookie card of TJ Friedl, autographed,
nice,
out of Gold Label from Topps. So that's our trading card of the day, player of the game, TJ Friedl. Shout out to him and his 3-run bomb.
You a trading card guy? You like trading cards, obviously. I can see that in the back now. Nice.
Yeah, not only do I like them, I work for a company who specializes in them. So the company that I work for has an app for trading cards, and so these are all purchased from that app into my collection. So yeah,
it's cool. I like that. It's one unique thing about baseball. You kind of have like there's just this nostalgic thing that comes with baseball. Certain folks obviously like signed baseballs, signed memorabilia. You have game worn, game used stuff, and then you have baseball cards. Kind of the old school trade piece. It was the Pokemon before the Pokemon, right? Like it was the original thing to do as kids. And then obviously as you grow up, you realize there's obviously some other things you can do, which is collect cards. Anything else to add here before we take off?
No. Good win for the Reds. Good series win. Let's go get another one from Colorado.
It was. Here's the thing. Today, it's going to be a little clunky because, I'm going to have to come back here and put the graphics up and all that, but that's A-okay. Why? Because we'll figure it out as we go. We never really do have it all figured out anyway, so that's the good news, is that that's par for the course, When you don't set the expectations high all the time, you can sometimes find yourself in a position where the expectations are so low that you will still exceed them. So I'm going to try to dunk a basketball, and I will also freely admit I got a drywall problem back there. But I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it until the season's over, because why fix something that's inevitably going to get broken again anyways? I just want to say thank you for coming in here today right after the game. Numbers were looking good. Numbers were great. You guys are the best. We appreciate you. Go Reds as always. I'm going to go dunk a basketball because that's what time it is.
Did you see the jumper? Did you see the jumper?
I hope you see the jumper. Athlete! See you tomorrow.